I am so thrilled to be back with all of you. It feels like just a few days away from you all is too much. And I'm sure you all are shouting in your seats because you know exactly which camera this is. In Cam. Yes, it is, and it's back up and running, and we can't wait to see what comes down around the waterhole, in these open areas, on these lovely big trees. So much potential. It's me, Trishala, by the way. Very happy to be back, although briefly, but you'll see me on Thursday again for Wild Moments, of course. But then I'll be back to the bush. Now, Nkoro is not very far from where I am right now, so it's kind of cool to see what's happening out in the bush, even though I'm sitting in the office. But if I just pick up my head and look out the window, I can see the bush too. And the light is just stunning at this time of day. We're moving right into the thick of winter very, very soon. It's already starting to get chilly, but one thing I love about winter, I mean, there's many things I do, or I should say the dry season rather. Day lengths are getting shorter, and so the light becomes softer very quickly. Oh, we're over at King's Camp now, and we have some vervet monkeys. Nice, they've been causing trouble with me over the last few days. But before I tell you all about that, let me remind you that we're live and interactive, so please send through questions, send through comments. Let me know how all of you are doing. Let me know how you're enjoying the show. You know I love to get to know all of you. Because at the end of the day, we're all wildlife enthusiasts, giving ourselves space and time to enjoy and feel connected to wildlife. Zygote says namaste, namaste to you too, Zygote. It's so good to hear your name. As we wait for more hellos and questions and comments to come through, I'll tell you that I was quite scared by a vervet monkey just today. I was just relaxing in my room and this vervet monkey stuck its head through the small little gap in my door and attempted to steal my bag of books. But who am I to deny any creature the ability to read a book, right? But it gave me quite a shock. Oh, even one coming down to have a drink. Oh, this is so lovely. And I was speaking about the light earlier. Now, King's Camp is not very far from where I am right now and where that Nkoro Camp was, actually. It's in the Timbavati, which is kind of a neighboring reserve. So climatically and in terms of habitat, they're very, very similar. Ooh, looks like we've moved over to Founders. Because as I was telling you that the habitat in the Timbavati and where the King's Camp camera is, and in Koro, which is in the Sabi Sand, that habitat is very similar. But here over at Founders, where we're watching this warthog being harassed by what looked like a starling, the landscape is quite different. Not only climatically, but even the topography of the area, and especially the vegetation or the habitat. Oh, off goes our warthog. But winter is winter in South Africa. Those day lengths are still going to get shorter. Oh, hello, blacksmith lapwing. Chilling on the rocks there. And when the day lengths get shorter, that means that the sun is dipping further down towards the horizon a lot quicker. Gives us this beautiful soft light. And we're back at King's Camp now, looking at the vervets. Another interesting thing happened with vervet monkeys. They managed to get into my room, but I don't understand. But anyway, I really enjoy, if you're South African, maybe you'll understand, but I really enjoy samp and beans. And in South Africa, sampan beans is sold. For one, it's a really it's something quite typical of South Africans, particularly in more traditional areas, to eat sampan beans. It's cheap. It can be made in bulk and bought in bulk. So you can imagine that in many communities around South Africa, or even just lower income bracket areas, sampan beans used to be a staple, possibly still is. And growing up, my family would make sampan beans as well. It was something that my mum loved, and that's something that our ancestors would eat quite a lot of. So I love sampan beans, and you can get it in a can now. You don't have to sit and boil it for like 10 hours. So there I had my little sampan beans can, and a monkey stole it. A vervet monkey stole it. Can you believe it? I mean, it's a can. It's a canned food. What could it possibly smell from the outside? Anyway, it just ripped the label off, and then it had one of those easy can opening lids, which it also ripped but couldn't rip sufficiently. And then when I found it lying outside, it was just a plain old can without any label and one single bean sticking out from this little gap that the monkey had opened. So these velvet monkeys are not really in my good books at the moment. Not at all. Oh, there we go. So many hellos have come through and all the usual names. Aw. April Owl, you say good morning from sunny Connecticut with your cherry iced tea and you're ready for the show. Well, here we go. We're ready for Tao. Beautiful herds of zebra at Tao. Always. Amber Coast is happy Tuesday to all. Thanks for this time to explore the wonders of Africa. You've got coffee here. Nice. Tris Vissup says, good day, everybody. You're multitasking at the moment, but you're lurking. Well, we're happy to kind of have you looking at us every now and then and listening. Oh, look at this beautiful elephant bull in the background. Just towering over all those sickle bush trees. And sickle bush as a tree can get large, but we really see that it doesn't really grow. It tends to sprawl as opposed to grow straight up. So as it gets to maturity, like I said, it can get bigger if it's not disturbed, but very often in the wild they are disturbed. But they tend to get bushier rather than get taller. So it's not surprising that the elephant is towering over them. Dear NC says good morning from Seattle. Dear NC, we already know you have coffee. Of course you do. Bridget McKinney says hi. Hi, Bridget. Kauru says hi, Trishala. Of course you've got some milk today. Nice. Oh, I'm just going to watch here a little bit because these fights between zebra can get really vicious. This doesn't look too serious. Now, the majority of herbivores have their teeth modified to suit that kind of diet. So if you're a herbivore, you don't really need to make use of any kind of pointy teeth because it doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't help you grind down vegetation, it doesn't help you pluck. But what does help you pluck are incisors, and what helps you grind are molars and premolars. So that makes up the majority of their teeth. They also do have canines. I'm talking herbivores in general, but those canines are incisiform. So they've been modified to basically act as incisors as opposed to canines. But zebras do have pointy canines, or at least they do at the bottom, and they can cause a really nasty bite. And it's something that's most often used when they have fights like that, which is why I just wanted to watch and see what happens there before I get back to your hellos. Oh, Zygote, you're coming with all the new snacks today. You're having potato and banana chips. I do enjoy banana chips, I must say. Potato chips too. Haven't had them together though. Kaoru, you say those vervets are so cute. Yes, well, I'll let them know you said that, but they're still in my bad books at the moment. Rolling Trouble has rolled in. She says, hi from Washington with coffee and water here, and welcome back. Thank you so much. I miss all of you. When I'm gone, oh, very, very nice. But we have some Blesbok back at Founders, of course. Oh, and Bob from Kalamazoo is here. Bob says, good day, Jujala, and welcome back. Thank you very much, Bob. Bob, I think if you didn't live in Kalamazoo, I'm not sure if I would be this excited about seeing your name and saying it. Now, Blesbok are one of those antelope that we don't get to see. Um, well, we don't get to see much of at all. At this in this end of the world, there's something that you see often in the Eastern Cape, though, which is where Founders Lodge is. They're a really interesting antelope because and it's quite relevant because many of the animals that we get to see on our cameras, unfortunately, have gone through some period where they were hunted, whether that is for just as a sport or for their horns or for their skin or their furs. And Blesbok is something that are pretty common now in the Eastern Cape. You see them a lot, and they were almost hunted to extinction. And it's an interesting story because the reason that their population grew again from that point was because those game farms in which they would be hunted, I mean, people would pay for them to be hunted, for them to hunt the Blesbok. Those areas where that would happen, the as a business, if those Blesboks went extinct, they wouldn't be able to bring in a profit. So those game farms whose purpose was to allow people to hunt the Blesbok, they were the ones who kept the species alive, quite literally. And they did such a good job of it that now Blesbok are pretty numerous. It's always nice to look at them and to remember that. Absolutely stunning. And I love this black wing that's just surveying the area, bathing in that beautiful golden light. Oh, hello, the hopeless hobbit. Welcome. I'm so glad that you could join us. You say your new channel? Well, welcome to your wildlife fix. Our cameras are available 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can just tune in and enjoy wildlife as it is. And you don't always hear my voice or any of the other guides. This is lovely. We're at Tembe now, everyone. Sorry, hopeless hobbit. I'll chat to you again in a moment, but let's just listen to the sounds of this elephant drinking because it's one of my favorite sounds when I'm out in the bush. Of course, it decides to stop drinking. So, very close to my room at the moment, there's a small pan. And unfortunately, I can't see the pan. But this sound, the sound of elephants drinking, I can hear it from my room. And it is one of the most beautiful sounds. So, hopeless hobbits, you can look forward to all sorts of wonderful things on the cameras. And you can also really listen to nature. So, we have the Africam show on Tuesday, which is what you're watching right now. And this is when we go through the cameras and you get to ask questions. You'll have a guide like myself or any of the other qualified guides that come on and answer those questions for you. And then we have another show on Thursdays where we discuss really cool clips that we've seen over the week. But other than that, it's all about the animals and the sounds of nature. Hopeless Hobbit, you want to see how many live hunts do we see here? Um, it depends. Sometimes we go through periods where you might see something suddenly happen. The last time we saw a live, or I should rather say a live kill, because unfortunately our cameras are static and at a waterhole, because that's where the majority of action you're likely to see. Because it's a water source, it's a resource for a whole lot of different animals. So we see leopards, lions, we see cheetah, we see rhino, elephants, pretty much anything needs to come to the waterhole. So that's why our cameras are positioned at waterholes. But that also means that we can't follow hunts from the beginning to the end. But what we do see is the end result, which sometimes happens at the waterhole. Now, the last time that I saw a live kill was about, when was it, guys? When we saw at the Stony Point camera, we saw the Cape fur seal grab a cormorant from the water and then just fling it about. That was crazy. That was only a couple weeks ago. Then we also had wild dogs at Rosie's Pan. And that's the really nice thing about having the cameras at a waterhole. Apart from the fact that every animal does need to come to drink, many animals, because they come to drink, many predators will hang out by waterholes and watch and wait. Because they can kind of rely on animals to come through for prey to constantly be moving through. Oh, I remember that as well. There were the lions hunting in Nyala at Tembe at this exact camera, in this exact place. There were lions hunting. But I think the best thing about the cameras is that you really get to understand nature by watching them because you can't just focus in on one specific species. It's not like watching a documentary. You get to see nature as it is. You get to see African wilderness as it is. And sometimes it's quiet. And that's when you start to listen to the birds and the movement of smaller things. And then other times it can be crazy and you don't know where to look. And that's just how nature is. That's how the seasons go. Right now, we're entering into a dry season. So it's like the resources become more scarce. And then it all just blows up again in the wet season. Oh, now we're looking at some woolly necked storks. Beautiful. And the same thing goes for predators hunting or even just feeding. There's feast and famine. Nobody really gets to eat consistently all the time, all year round. And by watching the cameras, we get a really sort of innate understanding of that. La Fonda class, you say, hi, thank you. This is your first live viewing too. Well, welcome on board. We're so glad to have you. And we're so glad that you have an interest in African wildlife and found us. Ooh, this is also something I love about the cameras when you're focused on something little and a big elephant comes right through. He looks very relaxed though. Have a look at his eyes. It almost just looks like a slit. When they're irritated, if they want to show off, if they want to if they want to pay more attention, which you would if you wanted to show off, if you wanted to be aggressive, if you were fearful, in any of those situations, when they're not relaxed, their eyes tend to be bigger. They're staring right at you. They're trying to take in the situation before they react or as they react. Oh, got a friend. His eyes were really, really low, which is always a nice sign to see in elephants. Karo, you can hear the somber green bull calling in the distance. See, this is what I mean. There's so many things to pay attention to. And if you're not sure about something, the Africam community is so happy to help. And of course, you're welcome to ask any questions that you have. Remember that there's no silly questions. Wildlife and nature and the science of it all is open to everyone, and I'm always happy to answer your questions. Now we're back in in my current backyard in Koro, looking at a nice herd of Impala. Just what I was hoping for. There's a nice big mature ram in the middle there. So this is obviously his territory and all of the females that he managed to herd into his territory. It's such an exciting time of year when the Impalas are rutting. That's just their breeding season. It's such a wonderful time of year because Impalas are so, oh, I, I don't mean to be bad to them, but they're pretty common. So, and we don't get to see much of their personality, if I can call it that. Oh, there's a mist. But during the rut, we see so much personality. I love it. The Hopeless Hobbit, you say you try and watch at night, and you've seen a few hunts on the other cams. I think that that's just a sign to keep on watching. You watch live every Tuesday and Thursday from Missouri with your coworker, and a shout out to Ian. Hey Ian, for reminding you to hop on at 9 a.m. every time. So that's, oh, who sent that? I wish there was a name. Let us know your name. All we got from that is that you know Ian. Hopeless Hobbit, you say your dog Ruby is glued to the TV. You know, I would love to know how many of us in the Africam community perhaps have pets that watch as well. I unfortunately don't have any, but I can imagine that it's a really interesting thing for an animal to watch other animals on screen. Oh, everybody, Jean Gale is here. Jean, we were just saying, where are you? What could you be doing? Have you forgotten about us? No, we haven't. But we're really glad that you managed to hop on, even though, oh, we've still got about 20 minutes. I'm actually surprised. So I've been here in the Sabi Sand since ooh, since about the or at least Timbavati Sabi Sand area since about the 15th of May, and which is pretty much, the rut should be in full swing, but I haven't heard a lot of the typical rutting noises that I associate with that time. But in my experience here in the Sabi Sand, it tends to even run into June. I've only heard of really not as much as I would have expected. Bridget McKenney, you say your cat would watch more than your pups. It's so sweet. And we're back in the Eastern Cape at Founders Lodge, and we have two beautiful white rhino having a drink. Oh, isn't this something? You can hear their little sips. Oh, that's wonderful. I was recently reading about projects, well, a specific project, I should say, that has been kind of dealing with um, trying to trying to raise northern white rhino calves in southern white rhinos, and then the association is called Biorescue, and that's what they're researching at the moment. Is basically figuring out how to implant the embryo of a full northern white rhino into the uterus of a southern white rhino, and it was such an interesting discussion. If you're not sure, there are two distinct species, and the northern white rhino is, is basically extinct. There's only two females left, and they are in a care facility in East Africa. But they're not. They're both infant. So their names are Najin and Fatu, and one has an ovarian tumor, and the other one has degenerative endometriosis. Ooh, goodness, can't speak. Endometriosis. So it's not possible for them to carry a pregnancy. Now, here we're looking at southern white rhino, and in South Africa, we basically have the stronghold of southern white rhino population. They're really doing very well. Of course, we still have issues with poaching, and it's still a huge problem. But because of conservation efforts, things have gone much better for the species than they were looking like, say, 10, 15 years ago. So what Biorescue have done is they have northern white rhino eggs that they've harvested from the two females, and they may have even harvested some from previous females as well, because I think they have something like 24 eggs available. And they also had northern white rhino sperm that had been in their sperm bank. So it could be a possibility that the northern white rhino can be brought back from extinction with the help of the very, very closely related southern white rhino, which is what we're looking at right now. There's so many things to consider, so many things to think about, and it hasn't been done yet. but the possibility is there. And unfortunately, doing that still doesn't solve the real problem, which is the problem of poaching, how they got into this position in the first place. But it kind of makes me feel warm and fuzzy thinking that southern white rhinos could be surrogates for the northern white rhino. Mindy Tillapal, I agree. You say that this view is stunning. At Founder's Lodge, the color of the soil, the undulating landscape, the beautiful blue, crisp sky, and the rocks. Oh, it really makes for a stunning, stunning vista. Rolling Trouble, you wanted them to squeal for us. I was hoping they would. Bridget McKinney, you'd like to know, is all of this area red soil or dirt? No, not all of this area. There is a lot of red sand in the Eastern Cape in general, particularly in this area. I worked quite a bit at a reserve that's next to Shemwari, which is where Founders Lodge is. And there was a lot of red sand, but there were granitic soils too. There were very, the plain old light brown soils. There were also very dark, silty soils. So it just depends. And it also depends on where we are looking. So where specifically the camera is pointing or where a pan is. So if it's way in the bottom of the valley, it's going to have a different soil type to if it's up on the crest of a hill. So it kind of depends. Jive Bunny says, "You think it's the light. The light is stunning." And you say, "Hi, everyone, and good afternoon," all the way from the UK. Hopeless Hobbit just say, "Those reflections and the ripples in the water. Isn't it just something?" All those snacks you have, the drinks that you have. Oh, I see some springbok walking off in the distance there. Imagine you're sitting on that rock and you're just enjoying the African sunset here. Oh, breathtaking. Oh, goody. My favorite, my absolute favorite. Elephants drinking. The only problem with elephants drinking is it makes me not want to speak. And I have some really interesting comments and questions coming through. But it's such a wonderful thing to enjoy. So let's give it a few moments. Let's listen and absorb these sounds, and then we'll get stuck into it again. I really love to remind our community when we're watching the cameras, especially when we're together, because obviously that's when I can actually remind you. But this is happening live. So right now, wherever you are in the world, these elephants are having a drink. Right now. Like an homophobic, you say your dog loves watching the animals too. That's so sweet. And no name. Please tell us your name. Yes, you're not supposed to. It feels nice when we get to know your names, but you say that your cats love Africam and Wild Earth. I find it so interesting. I really do. Mindy, this is such an interesting question. So Mindy Telepower was asking, we were just chatting about the rhinos and that southern white rhinos could be used to as surrogates for northern white rhino embryos. And Mindy was asking, how close genetically would two species or subspecies have to be in order for breeding to be successful? It's a very, very tricky question. And I don't, for one, I don't think I can answer it, but I can tell you what I do know. Um, it depends on so much because two closely related species might have different numbers of chromosomes. And that's just an obvious thing, even though they're closely related. Um, and so there's so many things to consider. But I have heard that there is, in terms of the rhinos, that there has been one successful northern white rhino, or half northern white rhino, half southern white rhino calf. But whether that calf is fertile, probably not. But but I wouldn't know. I don't know for sure. But it's a really interesting question. And if so, you ask, how many generations are there typically? Oh, sorry, that was a different question. I moved down by mistake. But that's also an interesting question. I'll get to that. Just gonna finish up Minnie's question. I would love to do more research on it, but it gets really complex very quickly. And I'll try my best to be able to kind of condense it and see what comes of it because it is tremendously interesting. Um, but I think we can also be forgiven if those groups like biorescue who are involved in the embryos and implanting the embryos with the northern white rhino and southern white rhino, even for them, it's tricky. There's so many things to consider. The risk, the reward, the implication if it goes well, the physical risks to animals, to for carrying a pregnancy, the anesthesia, all those types of things, timing it so that you know when an animal uterus or womb is ready for such a thing. So much detail, so many complexities, but I will definitely try and have a go at it and see what I can come out with. Or you might just never see me again because I've lost my mind reading all of that. But I think it's it's the risk to reward ratio is okay for me. Kaoru, yes, you're saying there's a Lapwing chick at Nkoro. So Nkoro is this cam we're looking at right now. And that's one of the cool things about having the Nkoro cam back is that we can actually keep tabs on the Lapwing chick. The poor lapwing parents here in Koro. Goodness me, they've not had the best time in the world, have they? And Jive Bunny, you're really happy to have the Nkoro cam back. I'm sure we all are. This cam is such a treat. I have a lovely question, which was the one I half read by mistake when I thought that Mindy's question had an extra part. You would like to know Do elephants typically travel in packs with their family? And if so, how many generations are they typically in one pack? So we get two different types of groupings. We get breeding herds, which is what we see right now, which is what your question most relates to. Breeding herds are females and their offspring. So there aren't mature males in a breeding herd, but the offspring can be any sex. But those are immature males. Any mature males, they get pushed out of the herd once they turn, well, anywhere between about 12 and 15, though leaving it to 15 is pretty late. So now you're just seeing mums and their calves. In terms of how many generations there could be, well, I guess we can work it out. Typically, you would see three generations: grandmother, mother, and calves. And because elephants have a long gestation period, so it's almost 2 years, say 2 years for for you to actually just have the baby inside of you, then we'll play it safe and say 5 years, because you're going to be nursing your calf, and typically they would be weaned about around three, but let's say four. So that's 6 years just with one single calf, and that's before you can produce another generation. Now that calf will only reach maturity and be able to mate. If it's a male, obviously it'll be pushed out by the time it's about 15. It'll only really mate closer to 20, because remember, he's pushed out of the herd, he'll join smaller bachelor herds, or if he becomes a really big mature male, he might even roam around on his own. So if you're watching the cameras and you see an elephant completely on its own, it's very likely to be an elephant bull. Breeding herds stick together, that family unit sticks together. So in that family unit, you're having grandmothers, mothers, their calves, their sisters, grandmothers' sisters. So you have lots of aunts around as well. But the mature animals, the mature females, are all related in some way or the other. But given how long it takes to reach maturity, for a female, she can mate and actually produce offspring by the time she's about 17. Well, actually, a little bit earlier than that, but very rarely will she actually get to mate. So let's say 18 to be safe. 2 years to carry her calf. 4 years to nurse her calf. So that's at least 24 years. And three generations going like that, that takes you to about 72. And that's already like, pushing. Obviously, we're very conservative in those figures. So having a great grandmother in the herd is not impossible, but it pushes past what we know to be reasonable in terms of longevity for wild African elephants. Asian elephants do better in captivity, and so they can push 80, 90 years old. But for us, the African elephants in the wild, you're more reasonably looking at something between 60 and 65. 70 possible as well, but it's in that upper bracket. I kind of got carried away there, guys. But our time is up. Please all continue to watch the cameras. It's always a pleasure to have you all on board. I love that we ended off with an Ellie parade and rolling trouble. You agree? And that's good enough for me. Thanks, everybody. I'll chat to you soon, and I'll see you on Thursday.